Trigger warning, discussion on suicide. Viewer discretion is advised. Coming up in today's podcast.
And Bruce Hales said, he's transgender, you need to speak to Dr. Roger. So Roger Kirkpatrick in Brisbane. Right. Okay.
We all know how that goes.
Well, no. And his response was, that's more difficult. That's a lot more difficult to deal with. The only route is psychotherapy. So they then set out to find a psychotherapist in nearby that we could go and talk to. And we went to see this guy. We got to the appointment with two priests and my wife and myself. And the priest, the guy said, do you mind if I have a word with them on their own, please, before you two come in? Because they wanted to come in the room.
Right, so the priests just showed up to your medical appointment.
They they made the appointment and came with me. All this time, the priests never once tried to contact me or say, are you okay? Is everything okay? Is there anything we do to help? There was never any kind of support. There was no reach out from them. They speak about we look after, there was one of those podcasts recently about we look after those that have left the church. We care about them. Where? Never had a single bit.
They choose who they want to take care of or help. And and there's always a higher agenda to their reaching out. It never is just an authentic, organic reaching out of genuine care and compassion. It always has an ulterior motive.
You remember there was that Dr. Mike McPhillips? He was basically on a retainer from what we can make out from Brethren to send people back to them. So he's a London psychotherapist at £400 and something an hour. They sent me there. I went to see him. I had 12 sessions with this guy.
Welcome to the Get a Life podcast. Explore survivor stories. Uncover the hidden truths. Join our X-Called conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Get a Life podcast and to 2026. This is our first podcast of the year. We have many things planned for this year, and we're excited for you all to join us on this journey. I'm Cheryl Hope. I'm from Maple Creek, and today with me is Craig Hoyle. Today, we have a very special guest, Jolie Cooper. We are all ex-members of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Today, I'm asking you all to be open-minded to hearing the journey that Jolie tells us instead of what you think you need to hear. There's a narrative out there that this podcast is pushing a gay agenda. That is simply not true. What I am committed to is something much simpler: human dignity and honest storytelling. We interview people because they were impacted by a high control environment, not because of who they are or how they identify. I will speak with anyone, regardless of sexuality, gender identity, race, or belief, if they have a story that helps shed light on harm and survival. Today's guest is here for that reason, and their voice matters. Jolie and Craig, thank you guys for being here. And Jolie, thank you for trusting us with your story. I'm going to hand the mic over to you, and I want you to start us off and tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and what life inside the PBCC looked like for you.
Thanks, Cheryl. $1 million question for me, that one. I grew up. I'm a 70s babe. So I grew up in Manchester, UK. I had a good childhood. I'm not going to lie. We didn't have the name. We weren't the popular family. We weren't the wealthy family. We didn't grow up with money or anything like that. But parents provided for us as best they could. We always had it reasonably tough. We had to work for every penny we had. We didn't have anything handed to us on a plate or anything, but we had a good childhood. We got looked after very well. Dad worked hard. He had his own small business. He'd lost his job because he was a computer programmer, and he lost his job in the 70s, before I was born. Um, Mum's was a good cook, and she cooked everything, so we always had good home cooked food. They looked after us very well, and yeah, we had a good childhood in many ways, a very privileged childhood. And I have to acknowledge that, and I do acknowledge that I had a privileged childhood in many, many ways. However, I was the awkward one in the family. I was the one that was always a problem. If there was any fights or anything going on, anything gone wrong, I was the one that was always blamed. Because unbeknown to me, I knew there's things I wanted to do and things I couldn't do and things like that, but I was always struggling. I had two brothers, just two brothers, so there was three of us, three sons in the family. So we had there was no female, no dolls, no girls' toys or anything like that. So, we would play with Lego, we had Action Men, I suppose, we were playing on bikes and things like that. So as a childhood, yeah, that was how we grew up. I can't ever use an excuse that my background and my upbringing affected any outcomes. But as time went on, I grew more and more aware of what I wanted or who I wanted to be, or who I felt like I was. Um, so by the time I was, 6 or 7, I had these, I wanted to play with dolls. I wanted to play all the girls' games, like sitting on the stairs and playing meetings and things like that. That was kind of what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it, obviously. So I just mucked in and um, I played all the boys' games and hung around with all the lads after the meetings and things like that. Um, and then time went on, time went on. Probably by the time I was about 11 or 12, something like that, I realized that I wanted to wear ladies' clothes, wear girls' clothes. And obviously, this was very aberrant of me. It was completely something I wasn't supposed to be doing, so everything was done very secretly, very covertly. Nobody ever knew. Everything was all hidden. And this feeling never ever went away. It was suppressed at times and then come back, and then I would started earning a little bit of money doing paper rounds and things like that, and then I would spend money and go and buy a pair of tights or something like that. And this was I was aware that this was becoming my true identity of who I wanted to be. But however, I still continue to live my life as a normal boy in the PBCC. Um, all through school, I went to an all boys school, which was interesting. Um, I was I was always the odd one out, but for many, many reasons. I was the fat kid in the class. I was the one that stood out of RE, stood out of school assemblies, so I stood out of all those. I was also unfortunately ostracized at school because I was top of the class, so I was the swot. I was teacher's pet, etc. But what they didn't know is that, completely unbeknown to them, is that I was also in the wrong school. Um, there was the boys' school and there was a girls' school. I wanted to be in the other school. And that was all I wanted. Um, so I sort of stood out, and I spent all my teenage years through school as the odd one out, very much so. Um, but in many ways, we had a good life. There's a lot of privilege we had in life. I never had to struggle at school. So there was all these people sitting there doing hours and hours of homework and studying. I never had any of that. I just did what I wanted. And I got a fairly free rein in many ways doing what I wanted to do. Um, but I could never identify as the person I actually was. So life goes on, time develops, and I was developing into, left school as a supposedly a young man, left school, and I was beginning, yeah, everything was masked. I had to mask everything all the time, and I was developing into this complete, excuse my language, a complete asshole of an alpha male because I was overcompensating constantly. And so you remember we used to go around building meeting rooms and things like that. So that was the chance for us to weekend away. That was our only chance of traveling, obviously, within church at that point. So we would go for a weekend away, and I'd be on the meeting room sites and things like that. And I was the alpha arsehole. I'd do bricklaying, joinery work, whatever like that. Yes, I could do it. Yes, I enjoy doing it, and I still do enjoy doing it. Doing things with my hands, but um, it was never really my true identity that was ever allowed to be on show. Go fast forward to about 1996, it would have been. Yeah, I was 20. There was one or two things went on. I got caught doing things that I shouldn't be doing. Only normal 20-year-old things that every 20-year-old youth wants to do. And so I got restricted. I was shut up. And then I was in Manchester at this point and had a couple of good priests. One was very good, the other was a wannabe, but he'd been in charge for many years. Um, and I kind of confessed all my sins, went through all the gory details, and then they ask you every single detail. And did you do this? Did you do that? And how did you do this? And why are we doing that? And how many times did you do it? And did all the gory details of everything. And any of that I was withdrawn from. And this would have been about July or August 96. And after I'd been withdrawn from 3 or 4 weeks, it was suggested that I should leave my parents' house to allow them to resume normal fellowship with church. So I did. I got myself a little flat. Wasn't far away. It was only a couple of miles away from my parents' place. And I went to live there. I was on my own little studio apartment. Um, got a job. I remember the job now. I was doing landscaping work. And I tried hard. I tried really hard to be good and do what I was supposed to do. Give them their due. There was one of the priests particularly was very energetic. He put a lot of time in. I was in that apartment for 17 months, and there was 1 week, only 1 week in those 17 months that he didn't come to visit me and see how I was getting on. So he put a lot of time and he put a lot of effort in, and he was as empathetic as he knew how to be.
Had you shared with the priest at this point how you felt about your gender identity and what was their
Absolutely,
reaction
yeah.
to that?
So absolutely, yeah. I'd said, when it was after I shared that I was withdrawn from.
Oh, okay.
So I would have probably, I don't know, if remained shut up or what, but anyway, it was after I shared that they decided that my sin couldn't be covered and I would have to be withdrawn from. And I remember
Hmm.
him asking me at one
So
point, yeah,
we withdrawn from for who you were rather than what you'd done. Would
yeah,
that be a good way of
yeah.
summarizing it?
Well, yes, it was. Um, it's a while back now. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it was for me. It was like once I told them this, it became. I remember he asked me, "Do you want to become a woman?" And obviously, I'm very, very confused at this point with everything going on. I remember the first time
Mm-hmm.
I said no. Um, so I was living there on my own, and I was doing what I could to get right. to get back to church.
Okay, so you actually were trying to get back to the
Yeah,
PBCC or exclusive
absolutely.
brethren at that point in time that they were.
Because I knew nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, we knew absolutely nothing else, and obviously you got to bear in mind there was 1996. There was no generally available internet, and there's no
Yeah.
information available. We certainly didn't have mobile phones or early mobile phones. So to actually get hold of any information, to network, to find people, to find out what I needed to know to go on my journey, um, there just was no information easily accessible out there. Because we had no connections with the outside world, we never socialized with anybody other than within the church. I had no connections, had no network of people to find out information from. And because it was still very much a perceived um, transgenderism was very much perceived an aberrance in society and completely abnormal. It wasn't something that you could go and say, "Hey, what do you do about this?" You couldn't just go and approach them with anybody out of the blue on that one.
And you wouldn't have even known what this was called at that age, would you have? Like,
Um,
did you know
I
that this was
knew, I
possible?
knew.
Okay.
Yes, I knew. And the first time I remember, I would have been about 12 or 13. I might have been older. I could date it exactly because I remember the newspaper article. I wrote a newspaper article about a Eurovision winner at Dano International. And it was the first time I'd ever read publicly in the newspaper about anybody who was
Mm.
anything other than male stroke female. Um, so I don't know what year that was that she won. I'm going to say early
What
90s.
was there an immediate realization at that point that that was something that you identified with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was the word. I think the word they used about that at that time was that she was a transvestite. And
Mm.
I was like,
Hmm.
what the hell does that mean? And I looked it up in the dictionary. I was like, oh, oh, that kind of makes sense. Um, I remember I cut the newspaper article out. I had it in my wallet for a while. Um, but it was kind of how I realized this is how I was identifying at this point. So I have,
What was your feeling around that? Like, what was your emotional reaction to realizing that there was a label for how you felt?
I'm like, oh, there are others like me, but it was still very unusual. But it's like I suppose it gave me a slight glimmer of hope that I wasn't alone. Um, which I kind of knew I wasn't, but I didn't know. Certainly didn't know any names or anything like that. Um,
What did the priest say to you though? Like, how did they explain? Did they say like what was their response when you told them about
well,
this?
well, God has made you male and female, and God doesn't make any mistakes. He makes us either male, and he's very much in this or that binary
Mm.
state. And yes, I think in the binary as well. But it was like God doesn't make mistakes. He's either made you male or he's made you female. There was no concept or no acceptance of the fact that um, someone could be half and half. Someone could be um, internally female, externally male. There was no acceptance that there could be an incongruence between the internal and the external,
Yeah.
and the psychology of that. Um, and I knew there was
That's
no
leaving
difference.
aside like the binary is just in terms of God created male and female, there are a lot of intersex people who are just like quite plainly neither
Yeah,
fully male nor fully female. So it's not true that there's a gender binary the way God created them. And if God
no.
doesn't make mistakes, then God is out there creating people like this.
Oh, God has made
Hmm.
exactly. He's made us like this. This is exactly how it was. And I'll come back to that stage a little bit later because it is very relevant. So I remember I was living in my apartment on my own, and then something happened, and I got all the feelings came back, and I wanted, and anyway, I got really stressed up about this, and I rang my priest, a guy called Donald Dunbar. Don't really remember him, but he passed away in 1999. He passed away. Um, but I rang him, and then we talked away on the phone, and he came round a couple of days later to see how I was getting on. And he asked me again at that point, and he said, "Do you want to be a woman?" I said, "I think I do, yes." And he said, "The last time I asked you that, you didn't." I said, "Yeah, but I've been studying and who I am." And he was there, and he was like, "We don't do this." And anyway, anyway, I fought the fight, and I was really good, and various things I ought to do. Um, and I just seemed to be getting nowhere. I was, as I living, I was living a good life. I was reading. I was trying to read ministry, and I'm not a natural reader. Um, and all that sort of thing. So I sat
And
there.
that's while you were withdrawn from.
Yes, I was drawn from it. And I think I had some of John Hale's ministry that I had up to the time when I'd been withdrawn from. And I think I had some of JT's Blue Books. That was the only ministry I had with me. So I read quite a lot, which kind of stood me in good stead later in life. And then they got a message back from Sydney that saying that I should, because I was working with a non-brethren company, and they said, "Oh, you should tell the people you're working with why you're where you are." And it's a bit weird because I just said, "Oh, don't live with my dad. I don't see my dad." So I got an opportunity. I was working on a Saturday. There's another lad who I got on quite well with. He was an interesting character. But and he just lost his dad. His dad had died or something like that. Um, and he was talking, and just as part of sort of consoling him, like I said, well, I've not spoken to my dad either for however long. And I said the reason is this, I'd done some things. I grew up in a church and did some church sins, um, and paying my repentance for that. That was on a Saturday. The priest came around on a Monday. I told him this little story, and Tuesday night I was welcomed back into fellowship. All was rosy, all was great. Um, I'm a believer. I'm still a Christian, to this day, and I don't, I'm not ashamed of that. And I'd had this view of what Christ was wanting from his church, and you kind of get this utopian view that the brethren were that. And so I got received back in, and everything was lovely and rosy. Everyone was really happy to see me, and I was a great success story, and everything was wonderful. And it's within a couple of months. I remember it was a care meeting. That would have been December '97. When I went back, and then there was a care meeting in, I'm gonna guess about April '98, something like that. And there was one of those usual big arguments you get in care meetings, and it was absolutely trivial. It was utter bullshit. And I came out of that meeting and I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what Christ's assembly should be. We shouldn't be arguing and bickering like little kids. And it was just, I think it was one of the usual, what time of meetings, we're changing the time of a meeting. It was just, but it was so trivial. I was furious that day. I remember we went walking, we went up to the Lake District, we went walking, and I just lost my shit, and I went off, and I walked, and I did about 15 miles or something like that in the mountains, just to walk off my anger and my stress. And at that point, everything came back to me, and I knew it's never gone away. It was masked, it was suppressed, but it had never actually gone away.
So what had you thought? Had you thought that you would just have to suppress your identity for the rest of your life if you
Everything.
stayed in a
Oh,
prison, or did you genuinely think that there might be a chance that it would go away?
I guess I kind of hoped there was a time it was going to go away, but at that time everything was just basically suppressed. And yeah, I would just have to keep judging myself and judge myself and judge myself and judge myself and judge myself. And that was it would weaken and go away, but it never weakened, never once weakened, and it was still there. It was still there as strong as ever. So I came home and that night I spoke to Dad that night. I said, "Look, I'm just mad. Why is it like this? Why is it like this?"
hmm.
So the assembly, the bride of Christ is supposed to be a pure, perfect vessel. Why are we sitting there bickering and arguing like kids? He was
Let's
like,
just for the viewers and listeners, I just want to explain what a care meeting is, just so that you have the
yeah,
context of what Jolie's talking about. A care meeting happens on the first Saturday of every month, and it's where they get together and they dish out all their money and they take care of matters that need to be had. And those matters are very much subject to the approval of the people who take the lead in every single locality. And so what Jolie was just referring to, that there was all this bickering, this was happening in a meeting where they're trying to take care of matters.
yeah, administrative matters and just
Yeah.
practical matters of running church. So I've got all these feelings, and it came back up, and I'm like, this ain't going away anywhere. So I just kept them suppressed. I just suppressed them, and I then found a place actually in Manchester that was offering a dressing service for transsexuals and transgender and transvestites. And I went to one of these places, and I was there for about 4 hours. It bloody fortune it cost me, but um, I went, and I remember just
What did
thinking
you
how
buy?
I didn't buy anything, but I paid for a dressing service. So I went in there, they did me a full makeover, full dress and everything like that. And I sat there, I was there about 4 hours. They did full makeover, full pampering and everything like that. And then I just felt so normal,
Aw.
just felt so absolutely normal. And I'm like, this is actually who I am. And this is actually who I am. I know this. I know this is who I am. And it had to come to an end. And anyway,
Like, what was it like looking in the mirror at that moment?
just hell yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, it was still fat. I was never going to be skinny or anything like that. But I was like, yeah, this is me.
Aw.
Um, I think I went there probably a couple of times. Anyway, obviously, this was all kept down and nobody knew anything about this. And then I got married. I got married in 1999. So it's just 2 years after I'd been recovered back into church. Married a local girl, lovely, lovely girl. And she was told everything about me before I got married. The priest had a meeting with her and told her what I'd been like and what I'd done. So she was told all my sins before she gave me an answer, whether she would marry me or not. So it was like a bit of a tricky one, that. So if she'd been told all that and then suddenly said no, it would have been a bit of a tough one. But anyway. And
And
she,
you agreed for the priest to share everything with her?
yeah, they'd said we were, they think they came to me and said we ought to speak to Nick, so fine, whatever. Because I kind of expected that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that sins um are forgiven and forgotten, but the realistic thing is that they are possibly forgiven, but they're never ever forgotten. And I knew I was going to live the rest of my life with a target on my back. I
Hmm.
was always going to
Mm.
be watched. I was always going to be monitored.
Did they know at this point that you had gone to these like dressing
No,
services after you'd
no,
come
no,
back in, or you'd just
no.
been keeping that a complete
Oh no,
secret?
no, they didn't know anything about that. No, no, that was for me. That wasn't for them. And it was a really tricky time. During the Sir Donald Dunbar, who'd been my priest while I would been withdrawn from, I'd spoken to him. My wife Nikki she'd worked for him, in his business, and yeah, he was very happy with it. Basically, he said, "Fine, she's really great, no problems whatsoever." And we got engaged, or in between us speaking to him and us getting engaged, Donald passed away. And then we were left in a terrible situation in Manchester where we had a power grab going on. And oh, that was terrible. There was all kinds of crap went on. And part of the power thing, I was caught right in the middle of it. So, yeah.
And so again, here for the listeners and viewers, when he's talking about a priest that passes away, then the local men of the area, now that position has to be replaced. And it tends to be just a big, huge ego fest of who can rise to the top the best and who has the, it's total a power party, isn't it?
Oh, it was awful. And there was this one guy, he was wanting to take control, and yes, he knew some of my background. He obviously hadn't forgotten my background and my history. And yeah, I mean, I got a roasting off him on the Monday night before I was getting married. So I was caught, and there was all this storm going on. It was just like I couldn't cope with it all anyway. But anyway, be that as it may, we got married.
How did your fiance react when the priest told her that her soon-to-be husband actually wanted to be a woman?
I don't know what they told her, but they basically told her what I'd done. I don't know if they told her any of my intentions or anything like that.
Mm.
And she decided from what they said, and it was all forgiven. And she said, "Well, if it's been forgiven in the assembly, I can forgive it as well." And then I remember she said she went down for breakfast the next morning at home, and they were a very good family. And they did all the usual reading, singing, and praying at breakfast time, which we never did. Um, and they sang that hymn, "Who is a pardoning God like thee, or who has grace so rich, so free?" And she did that as a word for her that God can pardon, so can I. So she graciously accepted my proposals, and we got married. I remember the night I announced it in church, because we used to have to announce it. And there was this, because I was a master at deception, because I'd been deceiving for so long and masking everything for so long, nobody knew anything was going on. So it was all a bit of a shock to everybody, and there was this kind of stunned silence in church. And then there's this old guy, um, who was an interesting character. He just picked up the mic, because I'd said, I'd like, if brethren are happy, I'd like to marry Nikki Wilson. There's this stunned silence, and Jeff Simpson picked up the mic and he says, "Does Nikki know anything about this yet?" Which was actually probably about the right thing to do, because it just took any sort of tension out of the air completely. And I said, "Yeah, I did mention. I did mention it to her." And then sort of approval, say, yeah, they were happy and go ahead. Anyway, um, I guess we'd been married about 6 months. And I realized that being married made absolutely no difference to who I was.
Hmm.
Um, and probably about 12 months later, Nikki also realized that, hang about, this was something which was never going to go away.
Hmm.
And
What was her reaction to realizing that?
it was tough for her, really tough for her. As far as brethren wives go, I would never have found a more accepting, embracing, broad-minded, gracious wife.
Aw.
Um,
Hmm.
she's lovely. She still is lovely. Um, and she came up with a way of managing it for herself. She didn't like it, um, but she kind of found ways of managing it and coping with it. I was probably too selfish. Hands up on that one. I'm very sorry, Nikki. But
And
she was.
do you think from her side there was also a sort of unspoken respect for who you were fundamentally?
She loved me. She did love me.
Mm.
And I loved her. I still love her. But whether she was
And it
kind of,
sounds like she recognized who you were,
yes,
even if
she
she wasn't
recognized that.
particularly
Yes,
happy about it.
she recognized certainly something, and it grew. That would have grown over time. Absolutely. Fast forward to 2005, in the review days,
Mm.
um, and we were talking, and we was like, we sort this out. So we confessed to some, I confessed to some things and said, look, I've done this, and we got 6 weeks in the cooler for that. Um, but the whole transgender issue came up again at this point, and different priests, completely different priests at this point. And they spoke with Sydney.
Again, for the listeners and viewers, when we
Yeah.
refer to speaking to Sydney, that's speaking to Bruce Hales, the man of God at the time.
Yeah. So they spoke to Brucey. Um,
And and it would have been a change in leaders from when your matters had first come up to this point,
oh,
from John
absolutely,
Hales to
yes.
Bruce Hales as well. So different era, different approach to the same
Completely, yeah.
issue.
Yeah. And Bruce Hales said, "Oh, he's transgender. You need to speak to Dr. Roger." So Roger
Oh,
Kirkpatrick in
jeez.
Brisbane. Right. Okay.
We
Well,
all
no,
know how
Obviously.
that goes.
well, no. And his response was, "Oh, that's more difficult. That's a lot more difficult to deal with. Um, the only route is psychotherapy." So, okay, so they then set out to find a psychotherapist in nearby that we could go and talk to. We found one in Manchester, who's a private one, worked for Bupa Healthcare, and we went to see this guy. We got to the appointment with two priests and my wife and myself. And the guy said, "Do you mind if I have a word with them on their own, please, before you two come in?" Because they wanted to come in the room.
Right, so the priests just showed up to
They
your
came,
medical
they
appointment.
they made the appointment and came with me.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
We're going to get a hell of a
That's
lot of help going this
outrageous.
way. Yeah, okay. And I'm open to it, right? I'm open to psychotherapy. That's fine. I fully believe in therapy work. Absolutely do. So we went in there and he did his bits and he said, "Yeah,
There's
you're
but you're a psychotherapist. You're priestly.
they're coming at things from two completely diametrically opposite ends of a spectrum. One's condemning you, one's helping you, you know? So anyway, this guy, he said, I'll happily give you a diagnosis of transgenderism. That's fine. And um, given the circumstances, you married and church and everything like that, we'll put you onto antidepressants. Probably not a bad shout at the time. Um, just to as a
We all
coping.
know the brethren love an antidepressant.
Yeah. Probably not a bad solution overall for me. Looking at back at it, no, okay, it's fine. So I go on antidepressants, and then we go through all the, and I lived then for the next 4 years in Manchester. Um, I'm aware that I've got eyes on me every now and again. You okay? You being good? Yeah, I'm being good. And I was doing what I could, And if I'm involved in something, I just don't dip my toe in the water. I don't just do a little bit. I give it all I've got. So yeah, I was actively involved in church. I was th- practical stuff going on, anything like that. I'll get involved in anything like that. So I've got this 2000 and so fast forward 2009, I had my own business, which we started in 2002. I sold the business in 2009 to a company in Yeovil. And then we moved down. I've got four kids by this point, three boys and a girl. And they were 2009, they were nine down to three. So we moved to Yeovil, and Bruce Hales was consulted about us moving, and he came back with a response, yes, a fresh start will do him good. Okay. Clearly hadn't forgotten anything. Nothing had been forgiven and forgotten or anything like that. It was still very much fresh in their mind. Um, but Yeovil weren't told any details. And then I'm in Yeovil, we moved down there, and things are no different for me. I'm exactly the same person I've been all along. Things are progressing, and the priestly regime down there was a lot more hardline,
Mm.
a lot less grace going on, a lot less understanding of me because they didn't know me, they didn't know the family, they didn't know anything about me. And I got very
So
involved.
did you have to start from scratch at that point and explain your situation all over
Not
again to a
straight
new set
away,
of
no.
priests in a new locality?
Not straight away, no. So I didn't tell them anything. Um, and then something came up. I was made an IT manager at work, which was quite good. Um, reasonable, reasonable understanding of tech and what to do and how to wangle things on it. But I was given a free access internet laptop, so I could find out everything I needed to find out. But because I was working for a big noise in UBT and I was doing it almost as his PA, I can get away with it.
So again, for the listeners and viewers in the PBCC/exclusive brethren, they have something called Streamline 3 on all their phones and laptops. It doesn't give you access to a full internet. It's very limited in what you're allowed to search.
Yeah. So I had this for, and that's what I could find out. And then somehow, I don't know how they managed to get hold of my internet history and what I was looking at, and I got a load of flack on that. And I told them at that point, I said, listen, you ought to know I'm transgender. I've been diagnosed in 2005. We spoke to Bruce Hales. He said I'm transgender. Anyway. And then things started warming up from there. And I was constantly monitored and watched and everything. They then employed another IT manager, another young brother, who was downloading from my laptop all my work and private emails.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a whole lot. So I was being watched like a hawk. Um, but I was still heavily involved. I ended up being a Bible studies coordinator for the school for one particular year group. Because I understood the scriptures, I knew the scriptures, and I'd read the ministry in my youth. Um, ended up having to give them the scripture to get rid of me, but apart from that, because they didn't know the scriptures, they didn't know the ministry.
So what was your understanding at that point of where your personal identity sat with your Christian faith? Like how did you square those two parts of
Well,
who you were?
I couldn't see any incongruence. Um, because I realize this is how I've been made, and God's made me like this. So,
Mm.
what's your problem? You've got to
So
realize
you didn't have a problem and you didn't feel like God had a problem, and so it really just felt like it was the brethren who had the problem.
yeah, exactly. They were trying to make me feel like it was a problem. And there was also the constant question they've got, and this happens a lot even in wider society, people confuse the whole idea of sexuality and gender. The two are not directly connected in that sense. They're not, you are this, therefore you're that. I explain it very simply to people. Your sexuality is who you go to bed with. Your gender is who you go to bed as. Very simple and clear, you know? Um, so I'm fighting all this. It's constant, and it's constantly increasing, constantly increasing. I got a new phone. New phone got delivered. For some reason, they didn't have Streamline installed. But it was, well, it did have it installed, but it was still being monitored, but it wasn't active, the screening. And I rang a theatre booking line. I had so many ridiculous priestly visits, because I was being watched like a hawk. Had this one where I'd rung a theatre booking line. I got an hour-long session the next morning for making this phone call. Why was I ringing a theatre booking line?
Was it a good show?
I didn't go that time. Went later. The Lady Boys of Bangkok. If you ever want a really good show, it's actually a really good show. Good cabaret show.
So, what would you
Um,
say when you hear them talk on podcasts now, like the PBCC, and they say how they don't monitor people's phones and they don't monitor people's activities?
um, my belief, my understanding is that probably the average person in the street, the one that's towing the line and not causing any problems, they're probably not watching it. But if there's a
Mhm.
question, they're on it like a hawk, and every single
Yeah.
move is made. So if you're towing the line and keeping your head below the parapet, you can probably get away with it.
Yeah.
But as soon as they got any suspicion or
And
anything like,
would your understanding be that if they did have a question about you and what you've been doing, that they could go back and look at the past
oh, absolutely,
activity
yeah,
on your
yeah,
Mhm.
devices as well?
yeah, they would do. Yeah, they go
Mm.
back into your history and everything. And I don't know you can set your history to delete after however long, but there's ways. Um, and even if any deleted file is not that difficult to undelete, um, to do that. So yeah. Um,
I mean, I remember as far back as 2008, 2009, when I left, we operated under the assumption that they could and probably did look at everything on all of our devices, even if you didn't
yeah,
know for sure. The safest
yeah,
way was just to assume they were.
yeah. I mean, there was no. It'd be a hell of a lot easier for them to do now using sort of AI techniques and things like that. You can very quickly read through, but there would have been a lot more manual screening at that point. I mean, I got one. There was one, and this was probably one of the most laughable priesties I've ever had. Um, I was at work. Do you want to just pop home? You want to come round and see you? So I went, and they had printed out an email that I'd sent internally at work to a non-brethren member, female member of staff, and I'd ended the email with "lol." And they sat down for an hour asking me why I'd sent lots of love to a married female non-brethren employee colleague. I said, you know what lol? Nikki was sat next to me, and she said, do you know what lol means? Lots of laughs. And there's just like kind of crestfallen face. He's like, what do you mean? Lots of, no, it's not lots of love. Read the tone of the email. It's not lots of love. I'm never serious. It was clearly humorous. But we had an hour-long session on that. Um, yeah.
But once
So
they start nitpicking you, they find so many little things
Yeah.
that you're
they
doing
were
wrong.
out for
Even
ammunition. They were looking for reasons. They were looking for reasons. Um, get to like 2014. Um, I'd, we talked about it at home, and then priests had got involved, and I agreed again to go for psychotherapy, to go and see a therapist just to manage, because I was being put on these antidepressants in 2005, and they gradually increased the dose, and I was sinking mentally. I've had one suicide attempt by this point, or one suicide threat, I should say. Yes, I didn't intend to do anything, but who knows in the heat of the moment what I could have done. And Nicky had taken the knife out of my hand. And they've been increasingly tried different medicine, gone back to this one and that one. So I went to an NHS psychotherapist, and I got on well with the guy. I connected with him. He understood the predicaments with church. He was a Jewish guy, so he understood the predicaments with church, and I could relate to him with the sort of scriptural things. I could quote the Old Testament to him rather than New Testament stuff. Um, so that's okay. And I got on well with him, and he basically says, "Listen, this is genetic. This is who you are. This is who you've been born as.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't stop it. I can't change it. All I can do is help you manage it, right? Given your circumstances, and everything, you can't. There's nothing you can do. You can't. You're saying you can't change. You can't transition, etc. You've got family. You've got these work pressures. You've got um, church pressures and everything. So we'll help you manage it." And just he gave me permission to give myself space. And the work approved me going, and I used to go every 2 weeks, I think I went for a while. And I would go for an afternoon, but pretty much every time um, I went as Jolie. Um, Shocking wig, it was awful. I look better with the Craig hairdo than that wig, but but it gave me a chance to be me, and I could sit there and talk to the guy, and he would talk about what you've been feeling, what's your issues, how are you managing this, how are you coping with this, what do you feel about this. So we went through all this, and I ended up having about 40 sessions with this guy, which for NHS therapy is unheard of. But it stood me in very good stead for
Was
later
was
on.
that the first time that you felt that your identity had been like validated by someone else?
I knew it had been validated by the therapist I'd seen back in 2005,
Mm.
but I was never able to express really.
Mm.
Um,
So
I'd had,
was this maybe the first person who just interacted with you as Jolie without
yes,
questioning whether you
yes,
were
exactly,
Jolie?
yeah. And there was never any question. He never questioned my identity.
Hmm.
He could see who I was. It was quite obvious. To get to that point, I'd seen various other doctors, and they never had a question either. There was never, no doctors ever sat down and said, "Well, it might be, or it might not be." It was plainly obvious who I was. So I've had all these, and there's one time the priest wanted to come and sit down and check the therapist was okay. So one of them did. It's the only time I ever saw him in my male persona. Um, and they didn't like the guy. But I said, "Listen, he's good. He's giving me help. He's giving me relief and taking stress away."
When you talk about your male persona, like
Yeah,
what was the difference between the two personas that you went into those sessions? Like how did you change as a person?
I don't think I changed as a person in that session, but I presented male. Um, I was perhaps a lot less. It would have been a lot less open. I wouldn't have shared as
Mm.
much. Whether that was because I was in my male persona, whether it was because the priest was there with me, I don't know.
Mm.
But
So
you couldn't.
you just you had your guard up.
Absolutely, yeah. There was things I was never going to tell the priest that would tell the therapist. Um, but it's the first time, I'd been told that this is who you are. This is absolutely who you are. And what came very, very obvious as time went on is that they didn't know what to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
The priests hadn't got a clue. Um,
Because something like the issue of transgender people in the Brethren is it's so under the rug that I don't know that there would even be anything in the ministry on it. Like where would you
no,
look to for
no, I
what the
don't
Brethren
think.
believe about this?
I think I remember finding one reference somewhere to something very vague. There was a preaching that was in the early days of old preachings being um, recordings being released. There was one of John Hales from back in the 60s. He preached about whether you're a man or whether you're a woman. God's ordered that.
Mm.
But there's very few references in ministry or even scripture to it. But it was so clear, they just had no idea what to do. As far as I know, I'm the only transgender person that's transitioned, that's come out of the Brethren. Um,
Hmm. And there must be so many other transgender people in the Brethren, just statistically.
Statistically, yeah, if you look at 1% of the population, or even if you took at half percent,
And
half percent,
I can confirm that there's transgender people in there right now because I speak to them. Um,
I know
so
there's,
this is, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this interview is to also give them somewhere to go to relate to and to hear a story of someone who's made it out, been able to fully embody who they feel they are and who they truly are at the core of them and make it. Yeah.
I know there's at least one in the UK. I don't know who they are. But there's a therapist friend, um, who I know. She said to me a few years ago, I spoke to somebody in the church of the week. Oh, okay. She's not, I can't tell you the name, obviously, but I know what area they're from. But okay, interesting. Um, but they haven't got a clue what to do. And come to 2016, things hit ahead. Um, I was laid off from my job, um, basically because of IT usage. Um, I was a line manager or product line manager at the time. Um, a similar product line manager, non-Brethren staff who was gay, he was laid off a few months before me. Um, so yeah, there was clearly an agenda to get rid of any kind of deviance like that. But so 2016, I was shut up and withdrawn from, and I lived at home in my family house. Kids are still at home and everything. And I we had a games room in the back garden, which I'd built. We'd used it, built it, I'd used it as a meeting, as a subdivision room for 3 years. Um, which gave us a little bit of relief from constant targeting. Um, but on the very last night, on the Monday night, about a half an hour after the prayer meeting had finished, I had them ringing me up saying they wanted to come round. I'm not as convenient. It's just the last night we've had no, we can't come. We're having a party after the prayer meeting. Um, and we just had a barbecue with all the local brethren. You know, this is the last night we're here. We're going to we got a new meeting room, new local room. But so I lived in this games room in the garden for just over 12 months, something like that. It would have been 12, 15 months. And they would come regularly to see me and make sure. And there's just, I was getting absolutely no encouragement from them. It was clear that they were scratching. They didn't know what to do, where to go, who to speak to, what to say. They didn't understand. There was no empathy um, to my predicament.
What did
They,
you think your path was at that point? Did you think that you might go back, or did you see
I was
it
kind of
leading you
trying to go
out?
back. I wanted to stay with Nikki and the kids.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't I was totally devoted to church in that sense, but it was like it was all I knew. I'm 40 years old at this point. It's all I know. I've never known anything else in life. Um, and you've got that constant indoctrination going on that if you leave, that there's um destitution, there's debauchery, it's just utter poverty out there, and you will go to eternal damnation, etc., etc. But I was getting absolutely no encouragement. I was living in this room on my own, um, at the very point when I needed the most support, all support had withdrawn. From
Mm,
a therapy point of view, it is the very worst thing to do to a human being.
Hmm.
Right? Let's find when you need the most
mm.
support. Let's take everything away from
Yeah.
you.
Well, that's their strategy, isn't it? They deliberately
Hmm.
put you, I
Yeah,
think, into as vulnerable a place as possible so that they can
well,
like
they do.
mold and manipulate what
Yeah,
happens to you.
there's ministry about breaking. They want to break you, right? I
Mhm.
mean, how many times is
Well,
it said in there, you know? Got to break the
well,
spirit. So,
well, I
Jolie,
was
at this
broken.
point in time, you've got children now, right?
Yeah, I've got four kids at this point. Yeah.
Okay. And how
Uh,
old are the kids at this point?
so 2016, the oldest is 16 and youngest is 10.
Yeah.
Um,
And did the kids know about who you were at this point?
no. Well, I don't think so. As I say, Nikki had been one of the most gracious and loving wife I could have had. And we'd got to a point, 2014, 2015, 2016, early 2016, as a management sort of strategy, I would say to her, look, I need a Jolie night. I need a Jolie night. And I had a suitcase of clothes,
Mm.
put the suitcase in the car, and then usually after a Thursday night meeting, we'd go to the meeting. I'd go to the meeting in my car, in a separate car. I just say I've got to work late, and Nikki would take the kids home to bed, and I would go out. I would get changed and just go for a walk. I would drive to. I often went to Bristol, or I'd go down the coast, or somewhere, and I would just go out and walk. Probably did things I shouldn't have done. Not every decision I made was wise. But
But
even
you
that,
you don't really have like there's no when you don't have support like that, I don't think you can really beat yourself up for maybe choices you should or should not have
absolutely
done,
no.
right?
It was
Yeah,
my
Mm,
coping mechanism.
exactly.
It was my way of giving myself space to be and permission to be myself. And
mm.
the other option is I sink into a deep depression, and then who knows what the end result is. I used to say to them, I'll be dead by the time I'm 50. And probably
Mm.
would be. If I'd stayed in there, I'd have been dead by the time I was 50. Um,
This is like an extraordinarily challenging thing for a brethren wife to be dealing with as well,
Hmm.
isn't it?
yeah. And we kind of got to a point, in our private life. There was one night she said to me, we were in bed, and she said to me, she said, I'm not lesbian. And I kind of knew at that point, something's got to change here. Um, because no, she's not lesbian. And I accept that. And I'm never going to try and make her lesbian because that's not her identity.
Did you understand her at that point to be recognizing that you were a woman and that she didn't want to be in a relationship with a woman?
To
Is that
me, it
how you
was
would have understood
incredibly
that?
validating. It was incredibly
Hmm.
validating because she could
Mm,
see me who I was. She could see the fact she says that yes, she's asserting her own case, but she's also seen that I'm a woman
Hmm.
completely.
It doesn't sound like none of what you've described sounds like she was ever unkind or disrespectful about
Not at all.
acknowledging who you
No,
were.
no.
Mm.
Um, she was amazing.
Which again is like an extraordinary place for brethren wife to be in.
Hmm.
She was an extraordinary girl. Hats off to her. I would never have a bad word said against her. Um, she was as loving and as kind and caring and understanding and empathetic as a brethren wife could be.
Where do you think that came from with her? Because we hear like there's so many horror stories of people having to hide who they are from
Yeah,
their brethren, husband or wife. Like, why do you think she was an exception to that?
she must have been fairly broad-minded to marry me in the first place. We were never the quiet, meek and mild types as a family, as kids. You go into the Cooper's house, it was always going to be noisy. There was always going to be a lot of stuff going on. We usually had a lot of fun. Um, yeah, but her not so much her mother, but her grandmother was really, really sweet and lovely, and just embraced everybody. Um, her grandparents were Christians, real Christians, and they had their heart was bigger than their house. They would embrace everybody. Everyone was welcome in the house all the time. And they just made everybody welcome and feel loved. And Nikki was she was just like her grandmother. Um, Fulchers, grandparents were the Fulchers from Harrogate. I don't know where she got it from, but she did. Whether it grew with her from living with me, I don't know. But she was really good like that.
And so, what was the point at which you realized that there was no future for you either in the Brethren or with your wife?
So the I've been living sort of in this games room for about 15 months. End of 2017, the priest said to me, you should think about moving out so your children can enjoy normal fellowship, because they obviously couldn't entertain while I was still living on the premises. Effectively, get out, move out. But they put it in such subtle, persuasive ways. Thanks. So they did. So anyway, I got a little place. I found a little place, 10, 15 miles away. So it wasn't too close, but it was like, okay, if it's for the kids, I'll do it for the kids. So I got this place, moved out there. And it was a nice little place. They were happy with it because it was a detached house. I don't know what difference that makes to them, but yeah, anyway, fine. And then I've been there a week or something like that. A priest rang, they wanted to come and see me, make sure I was okay. I've got some box of bits, some bits you left behind you might need, whatever. Okay, fine. So they came around and they dropped off this box. And when they'd gone, I opened the box. They give me all the usual waffle about how you can get right and we can like to encourage you. And I opened the box, and in top of the box was my birth certificate. And I kind of knew I wasn't going back at that point.
Mm.
Smacked me right between the eyes, that did. It was really hard. By this point, you see, I've been laid off. I've lost my house, my job, my everything I've owned, all my social circle, everything. I'm completely on my own. I see nobody that I know or can relate to. And then I get this. And it was tough. That was a tough one. So I kind of knew at that point. And then they came again a couple of weeks later. I think they came 2 or 3 times after that, but I eventually told them, said, listen, you might as well stop coming because every time you come, you send me into further depression. I'm still on high doses of antidepressants. Um, and I'm just going into depression. It's taking me 4 or 5 days to recover. You're wasting your time. There was not one scrap of a fight to say, well, we'd like to still see you. They were like, okay, and off they went. Now, I'm a
Did you
stubborn
hear
bitch.
from them again after that?
About 4 years later.
And what was going on with your were you getting access to your children at this point in time?
Nope. So as part of the whole process, I'd been given a document which apparently was a standard document that brethren have used. And it's basically, it was not from any solicitors, and I didn't take any legal advice on it, but basically it was wouldn't have access to the house. I wouldn't the share of the property would be split. It wasn't even split half and half. Um, it was split like 1/3, 2/3. and there will be no access to the children or anything like this.
Would you have liked to have seen your children at that point?
I would love
Or was
to have
that too much
done,
to...
but it would have been, I appreciate it would have been a lot for them to process at that point. It was also a
mm.
lot for me because I was going through all my own shit. Um, oh, I should also
Were
say,
you, were you,
yeah.
were you living as Jolie by this point?
No, so at this point, I'm still living daytime. I got a job, I was still living male, daytime. It was with a brethren company. I was a self-employed, and I was driving a van. Um, and so I was living daytime as male, but I socially, I then started living female, living as Jolie. I did a lot of research. I found places to go. Basically, I looked for like transgender clubs or transgender
Mm-hmm.
community to link on with and try and find out what the hell I have to do to live.
Mm-hmm.
Find a network,
And I
find
suppose like this was like 20 years after you had first been withdrawn from, and
exactly,
society
yeah.
would have moved on a lot by this
Yeah.
point as well. So
Society's
it would have
moved a
been
lot.
easier
Yeah.
to find that support.
Society's moved a lot. I've moved on. I've grown a lot. I've got more resource available to me and more gumption, I suppose. But I
Mm.
also had the
And the
drive
internet.
because everything has been taken away from me. So I went up to London. I found a place, a club in London that was for the trans community. So I went up there. I remember I went up there on a December on a Friday on a Saturday night. I drove up into London. I'm living in Somerset, so it's about a 3 hour drive, 3.5 hour drive into central London. I went and I was absolutely shit scared. I went in this club. I've been into a pub a couple of times before this, but yeah, I knew nobody, knew nothing, and then I bought a drink, and I'm standing there shaking and reasonably fortunate. I've got confidence to go and do things. I'm not sitting in the corner shy and shaking and not going to speak to people, but I'm like, I didn't know anybody. I'm just going to watch and just learn. And anyway, I was checking the manager of the club came up and said hello and made me very welcome. And one or two other people came along and got involved in conversation, and I got introduced to, oh, you need to go to this club, this party, much better party, much more fun. Da, da, da. So okay, fine. Got home, had a couple of drinks and then slept in the car and then drove home in the morning. Got home, Googled this other club, find out what this other place is. Okay, fine, we'll go there. So, went up there. I think it was a once a month club. I think that was, and it was like it was on the. I think I went in January, the January club night. I went to that, and yeah, there was a lot more trans people there, a lot more going on. It's much better, much easier social environment to work in. So I sat there and spoke to one or two people. I was earning reasonable money at this point because I was self-employed, so a little bit of control on what I earned. And I'd buy people drinks and then start a conversation with them and find out some stuff. I went in there a couple of times. And second time, there's a girl standing there, and she's like beckons me, "Come over here." So I'm like, "Okay, what do you want?" And then we started talking away and bought a drink and let's have a chat. And we sat down and chatted and whatnot. To this day, she's my best mate.
Aw.
She lives up in London. I've got a bed at her house. I've got a key to her house. Every time I'm in London, I just can't stay there. She's a sister to me. She's been totally supportive. She's quite a bit younger than me, but she's been totally supportive and loving and embracing. And she taught me makeup tips and all sorts of things like that. I say she's a gay man, but she's a cross-dresser. And I said, well, I'm not a cross-dresser. I'm a transgender woman. She's like, fine, I don't care. That's who you are. There was no kind of incrimination or judgment whatsoever. And it kind of went on from there. And I kept going out and I met people, and I had some really crazy nights out. Some really crazy nights out. Um, all the time I'm discovering myself and learning who I am, learning the way to live in society, learning actually who I am.
How did it
Um,
feel to start meeting other people like you?
it was just like, wow, this is amazing. There's other people. I'm not so weird. Um, yeah, there's a lot
Turns
of
out
us
there are
out
actually a
there.
lot of other people that are more weird than me.
Hell yeah. Really are. But no, it was incredible. And I met some incredible people. And I probably spent 12 or 18 months going out to clubs, to pubs. Um, well, pretty much from then, well, sort of beginning of 2018, all the way through to beginning of COVID. I went out a lot. Spent way too much money on alcohol. Got way too drunk too many times. Had a hell of a lot of fun, but met some incredible people. And I built my whole network of people um, from that. I went to London a lot. I'd go 2 or 3 times a month to London and just go out, just meet people, and talk to people. And I got very well known in the club environments. Um, and I guess I was a little bit older than a lot of the girls in the clubs. There's a lot of younger people, younger girls in the clubs. And because of the nature of who I am, I'm a mother at the end of the day. I ended up being a mother to half of these girls because I'd seen a lot of shit happen in life and how to deal with things. And I'm never going to be judgmental with anyone because that's not who I am. Um, I have a caring nature, and I ended up caring, looking after these girls. And they would come and talk. Look, I've got a problem. I've got what do we do with this? What do we do with this? And it's just I came. There was one of the clubs I used to go to. The bouncer used to call me Mother Teresa because he knew that if there was something was going wrong, I'd be the one there picking them up off the floor, making sure they're okay. But it's just my nature. But I built my network of people around me, and there's people that I met then. And there's two people particularly who are my closest friends and sisters, basically. That I still have a lot to do with every week from those experiences. All this time,
Hmm.
the priest never once tried to contact me or say, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Is there anything we do to help?" There was never any kind of support. There was no reach out from them. They speak about we look after, there was one of those podcasts recently about we look after those that have left the church. We care about them. Where? Never had a single
Yeah,
bit of
they
it.
choose who they want to take care of or help. And I mean, and there's always a higher agenda to their reaching out. It never is
Mm.
just an authentic, organic reaching out of genuine care and compassion. It always has an ulterior motive.
Yeah, I mean, I've got so many things that happened. I mean, there was one thing, because they had no idea what to do with me. They really didn't know what to do. They'd obviously, pre-slips keep knowledge, but it goes all around the whole world. And they'd obviously had conversations with priests from every corner of the globe. And there's one guy I come up with, oh, there's a clinic in America in the southern states that can help. Okay, fine. Well, listen, and they put it to me, and so okay, it's going to cost me 20 grand to go there and do this. What for? However many a week or whatever, couple of weeks. But fine, if that's what you recommend, let's have a look at it. And then I heard nothing more about it, and I was like, okay, I was quite looking forward to this because it's just outside New Orleans. And yeah, New Orleans is on my bucket list. I'd love to go there. But I said something 3 or 4 weeks later. I've never heard any more about that American place. what were you thinking about the American place? Because oh, no, we decided not to. No, we decided it wasn't the right thing to do. Found out afterwards, they told Nikki the reason why it was not going ahead. It's because when they were talking about sending me to, it was just outside New Orleans, just before the Mardi Gras festival. And they were going to send me to a Mardi Gras festival. Like, damn, I missed that one then.
Like when they sent me to Sydney to try and stop me being gay, and off I went to one of the gayest cities in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But there was so many things that, they even sent me to that. It's probably one of the things that helped me most, actually. I don't you remember there was that Dr. Mike McPhillips. He was basically on a retainer from what we can make out from Brethren to send people back to them. So he's a London psychotherapist at 400 and something pound an hour. They sent me there. I went to see him. I had 12 sessions with this guy. And all the sessions he said, one of the things he said to me was, you got to realize if you leave or if you change, you will lose everything. And are you prepared for that? And that's one thing that stuck with me. Am I prepared to lose everything but gain myself? He increased the doses of antidepressants higher than a standard GP would increase it. And I was living like a zombie. I was literally had no emotions, I had no feelings, because everything was switched off and suppressed.
Yeah.
When I moved out into my own place in end of 2017, within 6 months, I was off all medications because I didn't need them. We'd fixed the
Yeah.
actual issue. Rather than trying to fix the effects or the symptoms, we fixed the actual cause.
You gave yourself an environment that you can thrive in, right? That's the
Exactly.
key. So, do you have contact with your children today or?
No. The next thing I hear, I got a call probably about 2020, when Nikki had asked for a divorce. So that all went through. That's fine. Um, kind of was expecting it, but yeah, that's okay. Next thing I hear is in September last year, September 25, I get a call from one of the priests in Yeovil, where the kids are and family are, um, to say, Lynette's asked me to let you know, that's my daughter, um, she's intending to get engaged. Like, oh, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. Who to? Oh, we can't tell you. She's not asked us to tell you.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I know my daughter. She's just the same as me. I used to take her shopping. Um, and I'd say, do you like that? Yeah, I like that. Do you like that? Yeah, I like that. If Nikki took her shopping, no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. She dresses the same as me. She thinks the same as me. She was just, yeah. Anyway, so I said, well, how are they doing? Yeah, they're all doing well. Are they all working? Who are they working for? Yeah, they've all got jobs. Who are they working for? Yeah, they're all being looked after very well. Okay. Told me absolutely nothing. Okay, well, I'd like to see them, and I'd like to see a recent picture of them because I haven't seen any pictures of them. I got a picture from one of the photo books back in 2020, someone sent me, but nothing else. Lynette was 12 when I saw her last in 2017.
Hmm.
12? No, 11, nearly 12. So September 25, she's 20, nearly coming up 20, 21 in December. So, okay, well, I'd like to see them and just, I'd like to see if we can sort something out. Okay, fine. We'll get back to you. Heard nothing, heard nothing, heard nothing. 6 weeks. And I'm really stressed at this point. So I rang back in would have been middle of October, middle end of October. I said, hi, yeah, okay. been thinking about our conversation. I want to see my children. I'm coming down to Yeovil on Saturday, this Saturday, whatever day it was. Can you let me know the best time and place to meet when, to meet them, to see my children? Said I'm the parent. I've got parental responsibilities. Yes, we know. We know you've got responsibilities. Let me know the best time. Okay, fine. And I've still not seen a picture yet. Can you arrange? Yeah, I'll ask some of that. Yeah. Okay. So I heard nothing for a week, and then I was at work. Got a phone call. I was at work. And this guy just thought we ought to ring you and let you know the family say they don't want to see you. So I said, "Oh, who influenced that decision?" I know my kids. Lynette wouldn't ring. She has instigated that call initially to tell me she's getting engaged. They wouldn't tell me we're off their own back. We know that for a fast statement. She would have said, "Tell Dad I'm getting married."
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't have had any. She wouldn't have thought, "Oh, don't mention his name" or anything. No, that's not. She's like, I know what the kids are like. For goodness sake, they're no different to me. So they don't want. I said, "Who? No. They came to it themselves. They may have done, but I was also in the meeting
Yeah.
when Bruce Ailes said it's better to eat rat poison than talk to people that have left this position. I was in that meeting, so I know.
Yeah. The coercion is real.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So, and that screwed me, completely screwed me. And I was in a mess, complete mess for several days after that. I was in the office and I said, "Look, I need half an hour. Can I just go and sit in the car?" And they're very, very understanding workers, really good like that. So, but it was the fact, and he told me at that point, he said, "Well, you got to realize," and he called me my old name. And he's the only person who's ever called me my old name in the last 8 years. He said, "They're walking a Christian pathway, and you have chosen to walk another pathway." I said, "No, just a minute, Clive. I'm a Christian as well. I have my Christian faith and my Christian belief. You can't say I'm not a Christian. Well, they walk in a Christian pathway, and you've chosen to walk another pathway." So immediately what you're saying is that because I've left the church, I'm no longer a Christian. But the basic tenet of Christianity is that whosoever believes Jesus is Son of God shall be saved. They're taking away that basic principle of Christianity. And I'm like, nah, I'm not in for this. I'm not in for this. And it was at this point, I think, when I reached out to you, I'm like, I was insane. I was incensed. Really was incensed with it all. And I'm not in
So
for
other
this.
than the kids, what about contact with your wife or your parents or other family?
Nope, nothing. I went to see my parents up in Manchester early in 2025. I was up there for work. I was doing a work presentation, so fixed my face. I looked pretty good. I was properly dressed rather than slobbing around in jeans and t-shirt at home. So I went in to see them, and yeah, there's very little point of affiliation in that sense. We've got very little in common, but it was nice to see them, and I made sure in the conversations that they know I'm here for them. If they need me, I'm here. They can reach out at any time. I've got no qualms with them whatsoever. But there's such a lack of understanding of life. One of the things Mum said to me, she's looked at me and she said, all the people you work with, are they all like you?" I just looked at Dad in the eye and said, "Yeah, they're all humans."
Yeah. What would you say? Like, what would you say to the PBCC hierarchy and priests to help them understand transgender people? And I mean, we know that they don't want to understand this, but maybe let's say there is a priest in there that actually is like, okay, maybe we need to evolve with, society, just like they did with electronics. We have to do this with understanding gender identity. What would you say to them that would help them understand more appropriately what this actually is?
One of the best descriptions I had, was talking with a friend about this, and the way they put it to people that don't understand, they say, just imagine you're walking along the street with a pair of shoes on that's the wrong size. What does life feel like for you?
Hmm.
Everything's painful, nothing fits. Every step is a burden. And if you just translate that to somebody's life where they're not fitting with the expected norms, it's not difficult in some ways. First thing you need, I retrained as a therapist a couple of years back, and one thing you've got to do is stop and understand people.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask a question. Look, I don't understand. Tell me.
Be curious instead of judgmental.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen when they talk to you. Listen to what they've got to say. The most powerful tool you have in therapy is your ears, not what you say.
Mm-hmm.
So just listen, just try and get an understanding of what somebody's going through.
Yeah.
And realize that if I had been born with a cleft palate, they would have no issue whatsoever sending me into surgery to get it fixed. If I break a leg, there's no issue whatsoever of going getting that fixed.
And that defies their statement that God doesn't make mistakes. But yet, you know what? There's many people that are born that need surgery right away, right? Like they
Hundreds.
pick and choose. They pick and choose where they apply that statement, right? Or that it's a test of this or it's a test of that.
Yeah.
It's when you just wipe away all that type of thinking and we come down to, like you say, just sitting with a human being and truly listening. You don't need to agree with every human you meet. You don't. But the thing is our experiences and our identities, those are the things that we have for ourselves. Underneath that is this capacity for human to sit and just listen to the soul speak versus the judgmental eyes that you've been given by society. And like, listen with your heart and your soul, not through indoctrination, not through society's eyes. Where are you? What we find who we are by listening. We find who we are through our open-mindedness. Doesn't mean you need to adopt these beliefs. You don't have to agree with it. But just I think that's what's wrong with this world today is that we are so stuck in a divisive world that is good against evil, black against white. It's just this way or it's that way. There's no gray area. And I do believe in these last, 20, 30 years, society is trying to understand what we could call a gray area, that everything is not black and white. Not everything is not what it seems. We have to learn how to listen with what is underneath the story versus what your eyes might be seeing, and that those eyes are interpreting through your beliefs. And then you don't get to listen with the ears of your soul. You're listening with ears of society that has been programmed. The whole world you could call as a cult because we allow society to throw us into these boxes. We allow society to give us these rules. Where is the freedom in that? I challenge everybody, and this is what I work through in therapy myself, is how do you draw the capacity to listen to what is actually a soul is trying to say versus where are you using your own interpretation, your own belief systems? Where are you using and you're imposing your own stories on top of what somebody else is trying to say? You can relate to somebody's story, but ultimately listening comes from being curious, right? You can put your beliefs and what it is aside and meet somebody who is just a soul wanting to talk. And I think
Meet
that's
them
the
where
part.
they are.
Yes, exactly. Right? Like you don't have to, we don't need this box of everything that everybody needs to fit inside your box. And I
Yeah.
think that this is the biggest issue that I am personally going through when I do these podcasts. So, I mean, without going into a whole lot of detail, I mean, the stuff that lands on my lap
Yeah.
fucking pisses me off so bad. Pardon my French. But this is not why we did Get a Life. We did not do Get a Life to become a Christian podcast. We did not do Get a Life to become an atheist podcast. We didn't do Get a Life to become a gay agenda. We did Get a Life as a platform for people who needed to speak their truth, to give their story and feel heard and feel validated. So I don't care what color of skin you have. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what you identify with. That it is all about letting people who feel they haven't been heard a way to be heard. And your job as a viewer and as a listener is to try and develop a plethora of colors to listen through. And yes, I understand it's hard. It is hard. It is hard as a human being with the way society is to sit and tolerate what might go up against your belief systems. But we are in such a crossroads now in society that this is it's an ultimate endeavor that has to happen. We have to learn how to listen. Now, I'm not saying you can't get angry, and I'm not saying that you can't do this, but please recognize what platform that you're spouting this off on, especially when it comes in the comments. When I get so frustrated that this is called Get a Life Podcast Ex-cult conversations. It is not a place where I'm going to sit there and tolerate in 2026 this bullshit. I've drawn a line. I think 2026 is a time where I am in full-blown menopause. And I mean, it is teaching me boundaries that have obviously always lived in me, but were obliterated at a very early age. And so this is my warning. And it is a warning that I'm not going to tolerate this type of abuse anymore. I'm just not. It's completely unacceptable. And if you want to have a podcast and a platform that has all that, then go fucking start your own. That is my message this year. Do not come after me or after anybody who is on the Get a Life team. If you don't like the way we're doing things, I will even help you set up a podcast. Reach out to me. Hey, Cheryl, how did you do it? I will teach you the editing program. I will tell you how to start it up. We need all different types of podcasts. This one has been developed and it has grown into what it is because that's what it authentically and organically grew into. So that is my Cheryl rant for 2026. And I'm just saying, I just don't have time for drama. I am so done with the drama. I'm done with the judgments. I'm done with all of it. So just if you're going to come on this platform, I just invite you and I challenge you to try and just set aside your beliefs, set aside what maybe you think society should look like, and just open up and listen to, like, for me, I mean, there's many times where I'm sitting here, I want to cry for you, Jolie, because I'm feeling what your heart felt going through what you went through. Right? We all have the same story. They just have different words to them. Everybody's story is the same. It has different words.
Absolutely right. I appreciate that. That is, if I was to say any one thing to somebody within PBCC now, use compassion.
Yeah.
Just listen. I, when I was in there, I've always been non-judgmental, and they kind of picked that up. I would sit down with, in the evenings, I'd sit down with young people, I'd sit down with old people, and just listen to them blow their mind. I mean, there was one old guy, he had a tough life, his wife was sick and son was sick and everything, but he would blow, and I was like, listen, I'll come round. And we sat down and he'd crack open a bottle of whiskey. Fine, I know all the whiskey, all of that, but listen, crack open, pour yourself a drink and just talk to me. And he would sit and talk, and we'd sit there till 4 in the morning, and he'd just pouring his heart out with everything. And I'm like, that's perfectly fine. I know how you feel. Just keep your head under the radar. Just keep yourself, away from them, any judgment. But I'm not judging you because all that you're feeling, every feeling and everything you're saying there is perfectly valid.
Right.
It's exactly right. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not a deviant of society to feel what you're feeling. Yes, you've been maligned, you've been pushed down. And it's right to feel that because you have been maligned and pushed down and just set to one side. But listen, if you need to download that shit that's going on, you can always talk to me. And I used to have the youngsters come around and sit down. They would do that, and we would just sit and have a good time. And then they'd have to go back home and be good. Old people do it. Always done it. I've got a good friend now who I met through work, but she's a volunteer for Samaritans. What do they teach them in Samaritans? A Samaritan's helper sits there, tells them how to listen. It's all they teach them how to do is how to listen. It's not what you say. Listen to people.
Yeah, emotional intelligence goes a long way, and it is the one thing that is lacking in the PBCC, right? Like yeah, exactly. I've given emotional charts to insiders. That is one thing that I just have in my file folder of when I'm talking to an insider is they don't even know how to truthfully, honestly be like, when I ask, like, well, how are you feeling? Like, I want to know how you're really feeling. And then you've got to excavate all of the indoctrination to exactly what you're feeling versus what you've been trained to feel. My therapist always tells me when I go to therapy every couple of weeks and I'll be going in because I'm a very emotional person, but my emotions get very much coupled within especially during menopause. I mean, anybody who's going through menopause is going to understand what kind of emotions come out of these hormones. And she always says to me, Cheryl, do those emotions match what you've just been through? And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, you need to offer yourself some compassion. Where's the grace? You need to offer yourself compassion because we are so indoctrinated, not just through the cult that we grew up in, but through society, right? To our emotions, we have a certain level of acceptable emotions. And when anybody goes above that acceptability, all of a sudden, you're either too much, you're not this, you're not that, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. But when you ask yourself the question, when you're really feeling emotional, do your emotions match what you just went through or have gone through? You then allow this door of compassion and grace for yourself for what you're feeling. You settle and nestle into it. And then that emotion is just like a wave. It comes in, it's doing what it needs to do, and it goes out. Then the wave comes in. And so I have sticky notes all over my house that literally say that is what you're feeling matching what you went through.
Yeah.
Or Cheryl, how do you offer yourself some compassion right now? Because that is part of breaking down that indoctrination and brainwashing is because what we think we feel isn't truly what the core of us feels. It usually is a trauma response or a threat response to either a priestly visit, maybe it's sexual abuse you've been through, maybe it's been how you've been told to feel. So you've got to learn how to sit with something and excavate right down to the core of your gut of like, yeah, I'm actually really angry right now. And I'm angry.
Good.
Yes, I am angry because this, and this. That anger is valid. Your rage is valid. Jealousy is valid. All of these emotions are valid. Doesn't mean you need to go and sit there and spew them on everybody. But when you acknowledge your human, God-given emotions, they have a chance to transform. It's when we block them, hide them, get them brainwashed that we end up in the situations that we end up in because they're all buried. But we were created to feel. We were created to express what we feel. That's how we were created.
Absolutely. And I do various mental health presentations, travel around the country and give them to different business networking groups. And that is exactly what I say. You've got these feelings, allow them, be kind to yourself, but give yourself time to feel them.
Hmm.
And it's really, really easy to say these things to people. When it comes to doing it yourself,
It's hard. It's so
so
hard.
much harder. I mean, it really
Ugh.
hit me hard. So I've gone through all this, and I've been refused access to see my children. And then 2 weeks later, I come out of a conference. I've been in a conference in Dublin, in Ireland. I come out of a conference, we'd been presenting there and talking, and it's about 8:30 at night, and I was exhausted. And I got sent a picture that someone from inside had picked up off a WhatsApp profile picture, and it was a picture of my daughter's wedding.
Mm.
And I was absolutely destroyed. Didn't help. She had a two-piece wedding dress on with a jacket which was virtually the same as what I'd been wearing the same day. I had a peach-colored one, she had a white one. I was just thinking, but I was destroyed.
Hmm.
And it just, I I didn't do anything for about 4 days. No work whatsoever. I'm like, I physically can't do anything. I was just destroyed. But then I realized I'm telling people how to process their emotions, how to deal with this. I've got to do this myself now. And I just gave myself time to feel those emotions. Um, and when I went into therapy, this may be really interesting for anyone that's struggling with gender identity within church. I went into therapy thinking I'm going to go through all the gender stuff. What came out, I used hypnotherapy. That's my I trained in, what I did. But what came out was not the gender identity and transition issues. What came out was all the trauma connected with
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
And that was a far, far deeper issue for me to unpick all those knots and all those beliefs and all those behavior patterns. And there's so much to unpick, and you realize, and even now I do things, and I'm like, even simple things like my geography of the world is driven by there was a locality there and a locality there, and they interchange, so they must be nearby. It's weird, but we kind of know where places are because of that.
Hmm.
And these are just simple behaviors
Hmm.
that, yeah, they're not damaging, they're not harmful, but you realize it's because of how we've been conditioned and
And
brought up.
because the conditioning happened from birth, that is the difference, right? That's the difference is the brain is developed inside that system. I've been out, what I left in 92, what, like 30, over 30 years.
Yeah.
Who's counting anymore? But I still have to go through those brainwashing,
Well, your
trauma
subconscious,
responses. Yeah.
your subconscious brain is
Yeah,
programmed by the
exactly.
time you're age of 6.
Yeah.
Most of your subconscious responses and behaviors and emotions are conditioned before you're 6.
Hmm.
So you start feeding them port in the supper at 3 months old
Yeah.
in the Lord's Supper. It's no wonder they're all pissheads. No
Yeah.
wonder I love a drink. Because
Craig, I know you're wanting to talk. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna follow up because Jolie mentioned there about insiders who might be questioning their gender identity, and I'd be really interested to know what advice you would give to people who are in that situation, who are in the PBCC.
So what I would say is that if anybody's questioning in it, there's a reason they're questioning in it. It's not just come out of the blue,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? It's important to understand, get an understanding of how it works. Gender isn't black, white, yes, no, male, female. It's not male, effeminate male, butch woman, woman. It's very much a continuum. It's a sliding scale, and we're all somewhere along that scale.
Hmm.
We could be anywhere. And how we present and how we identify is our choice. Do what's comfortable for you. Now, you're going to get a lot of flack. If you're in there, you're going to get a lot of flack. Nobody in there understands. But let me tell you this, they are all absolutely fascinated. I have LinkedIn Premium profile for work. It's calmed down a bit now. I'm probably down to about 25% of my views are Brethren members. hit a holiday period, we're back up at 50%. They're fascinated. They want to know what we're doing outside, but they also want to, they're fascinated. Why, yeah, I'm not the most beautiful looking woman on the planet, but I'm okay. I'm happy with how it looks.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to share those pictures right here. So here's
Great.
a picture of Jolie before and Jolie after. So Jolie, like, I actually had to show these to my husband, and he was just flabbergasted at like the difference of comfort with you being in a man
You could
body.
see
It's
even the
so
body language.
beautiful. Yeah.
Body
Yeah.
language. I was dosed up on medication now in the first one. I'm complete, but I'm standing. Actually, that picture I cut it out, but my two brothers were one either side. And you just look at it, and I looked at it, and I'm like, how didn't they spot this? To me, it's like it shouts, but um, I would love to meet my children, let them meet the most genuine, real version of me, but they've never
Hmm.
seen. I'm sure they've seen pictures. I'm absolutely convinced they've seen pictures. Um,
And so for any insiders that might relate to your story and might be listening to this and might feel inspired to
Reach out.
explore their own path, like what are some of the practical ways that they could start exploring who they are, sort of under the radar?
Yeah, so that's like books, websites, like anything that you would helped you.
Hmm.
No, it's a very
Yeah,
difficult
any
one because
resources, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, there's resources out there, but the trouble is, and this is it's no different now than it was when I started, but a lot of the websites you go to, a lot of stuff gets very sexualized.
Mm,
Um, so you've got to be very careful what you look at. Your best way is to talk to people. Find someone
okay.
to someone that would listen to you and can understand, someone that's non-judgmental. Anyone's welcome to talk to me because I will talk till cows come home if you let me.
And do you have
Um,
an email that we can give to the viewers to contact you with?
yeah, absolutely. I'll put that through. Or shall I tell
Okay,
you
and I'll
now?
put it up on the screen
I'll
here.
put it up on the screen. Yeah, anyone can reach out to me, and I'm always available to talk to because I know the pain you go through.
Hmm.
And that anxiety and that constant depression and the constant fight. I'm here for people. My role, my job in life is if I can make life better for one person, if I can save a life, I will do.
Let's remind the listeners and viewers too that you have retained your Christian faith.
Yeah,
And did you find churches that are accepting of transgender people?
yeah, yeah. I don't go to church myself because it causes too much trauma. Going back,
I get that. Yeah.
I went into a church, when was it? Nearly 18 months ago. I was with someone who said, "Oh, let's go to church." Oh, fine, let's go in. I went in there and I was like, "No, I can't do this."
Yeah, yeah, exactly
I don't
that.
freak out. I really don't freak out with things, but I'm like, no, I'm not handling this. I really don't like this.
The
And I
visceral
spoke.
reaction was real, hey?
Yeah, I mean the vicar, she came and spoke to me afterwards, and she was really nice. She's actually, so we got her support for the local pride marches and everything like that. That was fine. And she was totally cool, but it was like I've got too much trauma from church to come here every week. And she's
Hmm.
like, absolutely fine. You know where we are if you ever need us.
Aw.
Never any pressure to go, and that's fine. And I know that one day I may go. Who
Yeah.
knows? One day.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't need to be. My connection with God is direct.
Exactly. And I can think that
I don't
is
need an
sometimes that
intermediary.
exactly that you don't necessarily need a church to have your connection or your faith, right? That it does
But
come
try
from
as
the
I
core
walk
of you.
down the street,
Yeah.
I can tell. I talk to people. I can talk to people about Christianity and my faith openly without fear of incrimination because I'm not ashamed of it.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily flaunt it, and people may not recognize it from me sometimes, but um,
But that's your connect. Like that's the whole thing to me.
absolutely.
Your faith and your religion and what you believe, again, we come back to that, that's yours to hold, right? I don't ever talk about mine because it's not for any of you guys to know about. This is mine. It's
Exactly.
for me, right?
It's
That's
between
how,
me and you.
exactly. So I think that's super important to point out here that,
There's a
it
few
is for
things.
you.
There's the three things holding people in there. It's the fear, the finance, and the families.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you leave, you're not gonna go to destitution.
Yeah.
You might have hard months,
Mm.
you might have hard times. I've had hard times, but I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Personally, emotionally, physically, my health is so, so much better. Emotionally, I'm in a completely different place. I can face life. And things happen in life. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll deal with that. That's fine. I know how to process and can deal with it. There was never any instruction how to deal with stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do that. So if anybody's in there and don't worry. You know, we're not going to promise you an easy ride. There are some idiots out in the world at large, but there's also some lovely, lovely people
Mm-hmm.
who actually care for you without any kind of judgment. I'm
Yeah.
just going to embrace you for who you are, not for who we think you should be.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of love, and I've got a lot of love for people. If
Mm.
anybody, you know, we need two things. We need to be
One of
heard, we
the
need to be seen and respected.
Yeah.
My experience was that that was one of the biggest lies the brethren told, was that the world was a cold, hard place that would chew
Yeah.
you up and spit you out. And my experience was that just was not true. The opposite was true. The world was full of good people who go out of their way to help.
I've met some bad people, but I've met a hell of a lot more good people. I really have.
Mm.
I met some bad people within church, some complete idiots. But, you know, let's just embrace people for who they are.
Yeah.
You're on that journey, you're questioning it. Let me tell you, it's not an easy journey. And, I would say this to people, if you're going to take on a transition journey, it's tough. It's really tough. But not for 1 minute have I ever, ever, ever regretted it. Not for
Wow.
1 minute have I ever thought of going back. Ever. And that is absolute categoric. I have never once thought, am I making a mistake here?
No, because you're following who you truly are, right?
And I'm following at a pace that is comfortable for me.
Yeah.
I know people have gone my journey, not from my background, no, but they've gone my journey, they've gone a lot faster and they struggled. I know people have gone a lot slower and struggled.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to find your journey at your speed.
Yeah.
Um, and there is support. You just have to reach out for support.
Yeah. Exactly.
Someone will hold your hand.
Yeah.
Someone will hold your hand. I met a girl the other week, and she was very early in her journey, and I'm like, okay, you need to go out. Let's go out to the pub. And I just took her out to the pub. We went to the local pub, and she's like, it's the first time I've been out. Like, that's fine. Just chill out. You're gonna be fine. And then she came back and she said, well, nobody looked at me, nobody judged me. Of course they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Got to find your tribe.
Find,
Yeah.
yeah, it's exactly what I say to people. Find your people.
Yeah. You
Find
got to
your,
find your tribe. Yeah. Yeah.
um, you're very
Yeah.
fortunate if you are on that transgender journey. It's relatively easy to find your tribe because we are a defined tribe. If you're not in a specific community or group, ethnic group, or gender group, or anything like that, it can be more tricky. I appreciate.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I found my people.
Yeah.
It's the first
Yeah.
thing I did.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, we really appreciate you coming on here. I really want to thank you, Jolie, for the courage it takes to share a story like this.
it's my journey. If it helps one other person, to me, it's
Yeah.
worth it. It really is.
And Jolie, if you have any pictures of what your life looks like now, we would love to have that. And I'll do up a little bit of a video and insert it here. And just give those people who are maybe stuck in a position like you were in inside the PBC to show them exactly what your life can look like. So thank you. Here's a video of Jolie's life now. Yeah, conversations like this matter because they remind us that harm doesn't look the same for everyone, but it still deserves to be acknowledged. And this podcast exists to make space for lived experiences, especially for those who are silenced or controlled. If today's episode resonated with you or challenged you, I invite you to sit with that and reflect on what you heard. And if you're listening and you recognize parts of yourself in this conversation, know you're not alone. Thank you for being here. Thanks to both of you for coming on. Until next time, much love to you all. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening.
How can you support Get a Life podcast? You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/getalifepodcast. Or you can scan the QR code on your screen that takes you to our GoFundMe. Every donation helps keep this project alive. If you are in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. You can find all our Get a Life merchandise on our website at www.getalife.net. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.